We're going to go ahead and get started. I guess it's about 6 o'clock. Let's see who's here. We'll take a roll call. I know Mr. Cole is going to be late. And there's Barbara. Okay. And let's see. Okay, great. I'll encourage also commission members, at least at some point in the meeting, would be nice to see your face. So if occasionally you could show us, that would be nice. I appreciate that. Okay.
Do you see my face? This is Jonathan. Something is wrong with
I see your face. It looks very nice.
Oh, thank you.
It's nice to see your smile.
Okay, all the time.
And it's really nice to see Miss Nauman.
Hi.
That is
likewise
a very nice thing. So we're happy to have you tonight.
Okay, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, so we love Kevin, and we love having staff here, and certainly having the director is an honor. So thank you for being here. Okay, great. And welcome Louisa, who is in the process of becoming a commissioner. She's well on her way. And Nyla, welcome. Nice to see you.
I know I missed y'all. Sorry, I'm at work right now, of course, overseas. So yeah.
You're overseas? You're overseas?
I am. I'm overseas. So well, I'll let y'all know this until August.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm at a military base here in Kuwait here.
Oh my God. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. Wow, what time is it there?
It is now 1:04 a.m. AST. Yeah.
1 a.m. in the morning? Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Okay, so everyone's here. Mr. Colas will be late, so that's great. I have some additional items, but I think they can fit in under some of the existing agenda items, so I'm not going to make any adjustments. And I agreed that the county's folks, I'm not sure, I don't remember, I'm sorry, Kevin, who the person is that's with us tonight to talk about the pond retrofit.
Eric Jackson.
Oh, Mr. Jackson. Okay, yes, we know Mr. Jackson. So welcome, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. Good evening.
We're happy to have you. So our first agenda item is to hear about the OCF retrofit and what's going on with that. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. I will start by sharing my screen here. Let me do that. I have a quick, a brief slide. Am I able to, do I need a permission to share that what I'm seeing?
What I see, Eric, is the Prince George's Proud home page of the website.
Okay, all right. So you're seeing my screen.
I don't see it.
No, we don't see it.
I'm not seeing it.
So I'm getting a message here that host disabled participation is screen sharing. The host need to allow it. The host need to accept it.
Kevin, can you get that fixed with Antoinette?
Hold on, Eric.
I think previous presentation we had did a test run, so.
One moment, Eric.
Sure.
That fixed. May I ask you a couple of questions, Marilyn?
Sure.
Great. So I was just doing composting and recycling seminar workshop. for the Victoria Falls senior living retirement, whatever the hell they are, facility, and ended up with a couple of questions that they asked or that questions that came up that I didn't know the answers to.
Mhm.
When the composting toters have been distributed to the people in municipalities, does that include to the people who live in condos, to the people who live in apartments, or is it only the people who live in single family houses?
Well, we didn't the county, we didn't deliver any compost carts to any residents or households or multifamily or otherwise in any of the municipalities.
No, I'm saying not in the municipalities, in the
Oh,
non-municipalities.
I'm sorry. So in the unincorporated area, I'm
Right.
sorry. And the question is, so yes.
Is it
the,
only single family or is it?
It's single family homes. Most townhomes are in our program, and there are some, but not many, condominium properties. I think there's just a few that are in our program, but there's only like 2 or 3. So it's safe to say condominium properties are not in our program. Like I said,
Would it be possible?
we have a couple of exceptions.
Okay. Because even the people there who live in the single family, since they have a lawn service that does their yard work, so they don't have any yard wastes. So they were uniformly bitching about the size of the compost toter, which I know a lot of people, even in our West Laurel residents, do.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I would bring up tonight the question of whether it might be possible that they could put out their kitchen top compost toter at the curb to have that picked up.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a no-go. In a perfect world, we would be able to do that. But if they set their kitchen pail at the curb, it's more likely it's going to get tossed in the back of the hopper.
Couldn't trash people be educated that this is a county issued receptacle?
No, yeah, no, the policies. I mean, I appreciate you bringing it to our attention, but yeah, we asked them not to put that small kitchen pail at the curb. It's going to end up in the.
Because you would get a lot more participation if you
Yeah.
would allow it. I mean, if you care about participation.
Marilyn, would those smaller containers be more subject to be attacked by animals like raccoons and squirrels?
Yeah.
Because they'd be easy to get into more so than the larger container.
Yeah, and they could blow around, and there's that's also a really good point. But yeah, no, it's the green cart's the only option.
Okay. And the third question that came up,
So Barbara, can you hold
baking
that?
grease, is that accepted?
I'm sorry, Nancy was talking. I didn't hear.
Yeah, so Barbara, I don't know, we can, he's got the
Okay.
presentation up, so, and we can continue. There'll be other discussion about the compost stuff. So
Okay.
if you can hold that, that'd be great. Okay,
Certainly.
thank you. So, okay, thank you. Mr. Jackson, thank you. Please proceed.
Yes, today's presentation is I'm going to present briefly on the current retrofit project for the pond at the organic composting facility. On the slide you're showing, the pond serves as a sediment basin in its normal function, and due to erosion and deterioration of the riser structure in the pond suffered. There was a failure of the embankment, a blowout of the embankment. In its normal state, it detains runoff from the facility, removes the sediment, but due to the erosion problem that took place, the embankment was blown out. The outfall area where the blown out took place is located to the east of the pond. And this sketch is pretty much showing where it's located to the east side of the existing pond. Following the erosion, this slide is a picture of what took place. The outfall pipe was completely eroded and runoff blew out the embankment completely. So the county had to go in action and develop a project to repair this blowout structure. This is another picture of what it looks like. The project is ongoing. MES has contracted BNL, a consultant, to design and develop plans to repair the structure. Of course, there has been several setbacks in the permitting and design process due to the fact that the pond had to be brought up to current code. Currently, we are more than halfway through the process, and we are making great progress at this point after several years of permitting. So I would say we are about 80 to 90% in the permitting process. We have gotten almost final permitting from SCD. We have attained most of our DPI permits, and the park and planning permits have been attained. We are having some struggles with WSSC, but we're working our way through that process right now, which involve right of entry right of entry agreement to remove trees that are currently growing on the embankment. That is to bring the pond up to current code and compliance. But overall, this is a brief presentation today, and I wanted to let you all know that we're making great strides and we're getting closer and closer to getting this situation taken care of. We are proposing, we're almost sure we will be in construction before the end of this year. The project is close to completion at this stage from the design standpoint. I see Bill, you have a question. I see Dave, you have a question.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Bill or Dave.
Okay, two questions. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for making this report. I'd like to ask you first, the pond, what is the purpose and what is the function of the pond? And when it's in this current situation, what is happening when you don't have the ability to, the pond isn't in its in
Yeah, we're using the necessary erosion sediment controls. We're doing some pumping and filtration. So currently we're pumping. We're not allowing the levels to be built up as it would normally be during the operation of regular function of the pond. So we're keeping the levels down. We're doing some we're doing pumping and we're doing filtrations, filtering the runoff as we go along.
Pumping, you're pumping the water out of the pond?
Yes.
And where does it go?
It goes down through the outfall. We have put the necessary filtration process in place so that we're pumping it to the outfall that it normally runs to.
Oh, okay. So that's another piece of the construction, is that there's a place where the stuff then normally drains into?
Yes.
Does that
Okay.
drain into the Patuxent River or the Western Branch?
My guess, Chuck, is that is the Western branch. I could, because the Western branch is right there where
Yeah,
WSSC
I
is.
know where the Western Branch is. That's why my question. Thank you.
Yes.
So yes, that was an affirmation. It likely drains to the Western Branch.
It
Yes.
drains to Western Branch, yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Is this considered a retention pond, or is there a special category since it's taking runoff from the OCF for, that there's some kind of settling that takes place in the pond or anything like that that is aided in the filtration, or is it just a normal retention pond such as might be in any of the neighborhood developments for stormwater management?
Well, it's slightly different from what you would see in a regular neighborhood. After a neighborhood is constructed, those ponds are generally converted to detention ponds. This pond is placed for constantly functioning as a sediment control pond
Okay.
for operations, yes.
Will it periodically have to be scooped out or somehow, if it's a sediment pond, will it ultimately fill in?
Yes, all sediment ponds are silted in at times and has to be this pond will need to be maintained for sure. Removal of sediment when the sediment builds up.
Do you have any estimated life of how long that's going to take before you'll have to do something with it?
That's a design feature. And there's a limit to which you can allow the sediment to build up. And that's a design feature normally.
Do you know what that is?
Not at this point. We're currently in the design process. So all that will be worked out in the finished design plans.
Is that sediment considered hazardous waste, or is it just something that can be disposed of? Does it go to landfill
that
or what?
sediment would not be hazardous waste.
Okay, so what happens to it? Does it go to landfill, or is it used on site for purposes, or what?
I think when that sediment is removed, that can be placed on site, dried out, and reused, repurposed.
Okay, thank you.
Through the OCF facility?
Pardon me, Nancy?
The sediment is actually reintegrated into the organics facility?
Sure, it is non-hazardous material, so that can be reintegrated.
Okay. And do you know, to follow up on Chuck's question, I know that for this particular design, do you know what the sort of state of the art or typically what the time frame is on that?
No, not offhand, but
Okay.
there's measuring there are measuring devices that can be placed in the pond to detect the buildup of sediment levels and as an indicator of when the pond needs to be mucked out.
And is that a feature that this design will incorporate?
I'm not sure at this point, but in many ponds, that's a feature that is incorporated.
Okay, and so the design work you're saying and the permitting and so forth should be done hopefully by the end of the year. Is there any estimated time frame for starting and completing construction?
We have to go through the bidding process. We have suffered some setback that we did not anticipate in this design process. WSSC owned the property and we have had some setback. We would have completed this project by this time if we did not have issues from WSSC previously owning the property and making the different demands as to fire hydrants and also disconnection of a system that we discovered on the drain pipe. Yes, but we're hoping, we're optimistic that this project will be permitted at least by September, and bidding process will take place shortly thereafter, and probably an award and construction by end of the year.
Mm-hmm. But you don't have an estimated time frame for how long the construction might take?
The construction for a project of this nature is probably 300 days, Nancy, generally.
Oh, okay, so generally almost a year with
Yes.
all the.
Is there any aeration feature in this stormwater pond or whatever retention pond?
No aeration features in this pond.
How is it kept from turning stagnant?
Well, in this case, it is strictly a sediment control pond. I'm sure algae sometime is built up in this pond, but we don't have that feature incorporated in this pond.
May I ask a question also?
Sure.
So was the now blown out pond, was that in existence since the OCF came into online like decades ago? And
Yeah.
if so, how often has it been cleaned out, or has it been cleaned out?
So I do not have the exact date when this pond came into existence, but I know that a part of the operation probably would have had some form of sediment control.
And
So
what about the cleaning out history of it? Do you know that?
not at this point.
So, Mr. Jackson, what you're saying is what blew out was a pipe, basically?
So in the early stage years, in the 70s, whenever the ponds were built, they were built from aluminum piping. And those were state of the art at the time. It provides a lot of corrosion resistance. But over time, they do corrode and deteriorate.
So where does that pipe is a pipe that sends the liquid material to, how does it work? Okay, so it's filtering and sending, can you explain to me a little bit how that works? So they're basically replacing the pipe? That's basically what the construction project is?
So there's a riser structure inside the pond, and there is a outfall pipe that goes through the embankment.
Okay,
And that's the portion that got corroded and got blown out.
okay. Wow, so that's the only part that's being replaced, is just that?
What happened, we had to bring this pond up to code.
Oh,
Therefore, and today's code is more stringent than when this pond was constructed. So the embankment is going to be of a criteria that matches today's standard.
okay, so the project entails two things. One is bringing the entire pond up to code, and the other thing is repairing this outflow.
That is
Ma-
correct.
Okay,
Is there any lining used at any portion of this construction?
This pond is a lined pond, Chuck.
It is lined.
It is lined, yes.
It's currently lined.
Currently lined, yeah.
And you won't, is there an intention to reline it, or you're going to leave the existing lining that's there?
That's a good question. I will have to get back to you on Chuck. That's a good question.
So if it ends up that you're going to reline it, that means draining it completely before you reline it, I assume.
That would be the case.
All right, thank you.
and so, Mr. Jackson, what happens in that construction process then, at the point where they're, I guess, doing the upgrade on the entire pond and the pond is drained? What happens in terms of the material, the leachate coming into it? How does that get managed?
We do some diversion. The pond can be constructed in phases.
Huh,
So there would be diversion and construction in phases.
okay. Jonathan, did you have a question?
What is it? What is the, and I don't know exactly whether it's gallons or, what is the capacity of this pond?
I have that number somewhere. I could provide that number for you, but I can, as you can see in this picture, it's a very large pond.
That's a good question, though, in terms of for planning for future increase of the continuous increase of hopeful or organic material will mean, I presume, more runoff, right? So is that taken into consideration in this sort of refurbishment?
Well, Nancy, not necessarily, because if we do any additional expansion,
Mhm.
it will be what we consider the in-vessel technology. For instance, with the Gore bunker wall system and the Gore mobile heats.
Mm-hmm.
We have very little runoff, and what is collected as far as the water, or I don't want to call it leachate, but the wetness that comes from that is re-injected into the piles. So it's mostly our, the runoff we're getting across the pad, because we don't have any plans on increasing the footprint, the paved area of the site. And we certainly wouldn't be moving in a direction where we're going to add, open windrows. If anything, we're moving away from that open windrowing type of system into this in-vessel.
Right.
That really minimizes, the ultimate runoff that occurs.
Right. Okay, great. That's very helpful. So in other words, it's the windrows that are, and the primarily whatever the organic waste in the windrows, primarily the yard stuff, that's what's causing that wet runoff. That's where that's coming from.
Yeah, any rainwater, that hits the pad itself, or the open windrows. Yes.
Okay, so all right, so it's all, you're right, that makes sense. It's like it's stormwater and whatever runs off. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, good, great. Okay, well, oh, and I was going to ask, is this, I don't recall, because I did look at this, I don't remember, is this project in the capital budget for next year? I presume it is. Marilyn, you're muted.
It's fully budgeted, yes.
Okay,
It's
for
carried.
this,
It's what-
for the current
Yeah.
year?
Yeah, it's actually what we call carry forward funds. It's been in, this has been a lengthy project.
Right, that's what I was
So
wondering.
it's what we call carry forward funding. So we've carried the funding forward from from one fiscal year to the next, because we haven't moved into construction yet.
Right, okay. All right, and I knew, but since you all discovered that you had to upgrade the pond, the project really changed from a repair.
Yeah, that was a significant change of about basically I believe it was a $3 million change to the project.
Yeah,
We're using clay material, like Eric mentioned, to bring it up to the current code, or the current standards. They weren't gonna, allow for the work to proceed without bringing the pond up to the current regulations.
right, okay, and it's sitting on WSSC property, or is the county leasing this property from WSSC?
Well, so the pond itself is on county property. What Eric was referring to is what we need is a right of entry from WSSC for not only construction purposes. We have to come through their property with the equipment to access the pond. We work, but also in the future, it will be an ongoing right of entry for the county for when we have to do maintenance. Like, if we have to muck the pond, for instance, we have to be able to have that entry to come over onto the property to work on the pond. So we need what's in process now is getting that right of entry legal document signed between WSSC and Prince George's County.
Okay, great.
WSSC Water, I should say. WSSC Water. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this?
I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Marilyn, I'm looking at that map, or that overhead, and I can see it looks like as the point where probably the water. Well, actually, maybe I'm confused here. Does water go underneath the road, or does it go in the other direction? And if it does, it goes in the other direction. Is going into the pond? Looks like that's just below it. And is there any problem there with water pollution or something?
Yeah. So Eric, correct me, but the water, I mean, my pointer's not gonna work here. But it drains, you see where that little peak is at the bottom of the pond?
Mhm.
You see like a little peak there, I guess if looking at this orientation here on my screen, I would call that south. If you look
Yes.
south, it drains in that direction.
So the drainage,
And I believe that other feature that you're seeing, I believe that's a natural pond, that, I don't believe that's a man or woman or person-made, human-made pond. I think that's a natural feature. But Eric, please correct me if I'm
yes.
wrong on that.
So the drainage divide is such that the runoff is channeled to the intended pond where it can be treated.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that trout pond is not being polluted, so to speak, and the runoff again is not toxic. So it's being filtered into the pond as designed.
Okay, yeah, it's right, it's situated right next to right behind the Gore Rose, looks like. Okay, if there's no more questions, Mr. Jackson, we thank you very much. That was really
Yeah.
helpful. We really appreciate it. I know there was a couple questions. If you could get back with us on those, that would be
Sure.
great. About the
Um,
lining, I
that's
think it
correct.
was,
And the quantity.
and the capacity,
Yeah,
right?
mhm.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm making a note here. Okay, thank you very much. As always, we really appreciate your coming and sharing with us some of the projects that are going on. And I presume that the Area C is underway, yeah?
Yes, it is.
How's
It's
that
on its
going?
way.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good, except we've encountered a few unknown utilities as usual. We're working our way through those and to get it going. But it's the contractors seem to be knowledgeable and it's moving quickly.
Well, good. That's great. You know what they say, call before you dig.
Yes, but yeah, the landfill site that's been around forever, it's more like a private facility, and that they're just unknowns that we could not have identified.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, well, good. I'm glad to hear things are moving pretty well. I mean, I guess in these projects, you can always expect there's going to be some unexpected, hopefully small problems to work out.
It is small, so we're moving along.
Okay, great. We'll look forward to maybe having you back in maybe July or something to update us on construction.
Okay, well, thanks for having me and have a good evening.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Yep, Eric, thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Eric.
Okay, that was good. So let's go to Resource Recovery Division updates. So Kevin, you're on, I presume.
Okay. So last meeting there was a point raised by Nancy about the proposal of UMD to do a gas study at the OCF. And so what we did was to draft a non-disclosure agreement. And in that draft form, the signatories will be UMD, SWAC, and RRD. So it's still being reviewed internally, and after which we will provide the document to you, Nancy, and Professor Dickerson.
So Kevin, it would be helpful to understand, and there's just been some questions raised about this process, about why there would be a non-disclosure on research that is funded by public monies. Because I presume that the research that Professor Dickerson is doing is going to be for publication. So can you explain how that might work? How does this all work?
Nancy, it's Marilyn. I'm sorry I have my camera off right now, but I'll turn it back on in a second.
Okay.
The primary reason, from what I understand, for the NDA is that it's to ensure that the county has the opportunity to review any data or information that does go out to the public, to check it, to make sure that there's no errors or anything that's incorrectly stated.
Mhm.
That's my understanding. That's the primary reason. The
Okay.
county realizes, it's gonna be, released and the county's not gonna be like wanting to change data or anything like that, but it's to have that courtesy review, if you will, to
Okay.
make sure that the data doesn't include any errors, because it's really once, if something's misstated, or let's say
Yep.
what went out wrong, it's always hard from a, public perspective to go back and make a correction when something's already been incorrectly stated. It's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the, as far as I know, that's the primary and pretty much the only reason, I think.
Okay, all right, that's really helpful. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. So what I presume is then that the NDA really sets out a parameter to for the county to review the final data and information prior to its release.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, great.
And then there's likely, it just goes over some of which you've already seen when you came on site to do the waste sort. Just, it spells out some of the safety protocols. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Right.
So,
Yeah,
and then my understanding is also, because when I posed the question to our director, rather, would it be easier or, more simple maybe to just incorporate the OCF into the NDA for the landfill? And she said no, it would actually be a lot simpler to keep it separate. The landfill one's more complex, and so
yeah.
right, it's going to be a separate one. And I don't think all the same parties are involved either, because I believe the landfill had another party involved as well.
Probably NIST.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Which,
but this one was,
yes.
Andrea said, was really much simpler, straightforward.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So do you have any ETA on that?
No,
just-
but we haven't, as soon as we can get a status on it, he can, of course, let you know.
Okay.
It's being vetted for we did a draft of it, and, it needs to go through our Office of Law.
Right.
And, so it shouldn't be too much longer, I wouldn't think. And then at that point, it would be, well, I guess at that point, it would either be ready for signature or if, SWAC or University of Maryland, had any comments,
Concerns.
or edits to it, yeah.
Okay. All right, good. I mean, I don't know what Russ's schedule, Professor Dickerson's schedule is for getting things going. But I know once the semester is over, it's which is just, I think graduation was maybe even today. Then they're likely to sort of be, to be ready to move forward. So
Yeah, and we fully support it. I mean, we're looking forward to it. It's valuable information and valuable data.
yeah, well, I think our hope is we're really hoping for a very positive outcome that we can help promote and really wave the flag and say, look, we're doing a really good job over here. So we're excited to get this, going. Okay, great. All right. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, Kevin. Your next item, the 10-year solid waste plan.
So the 10-year plan is with MDA. They're still reviewing it. It has been adopted by the county council, and so we're just waiting for the final approval, and then it will be posted on the DOE website.
Okay, so
Area
just,
C.
I'm sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Is
No,
there
I'm about. Say, go ahead.
is there a timeline when that has to be approved?
Mhm.
So according to MDE, they will try to approve it before end of this month, end of May, before end of May. Yes.
there is a timeline, Chuck. It's like a certain amount of days, 60 days or something,
I
I
think
think.
it's 60.
Yeah, I think it's 60 days. I mean, at this point, it seems fairly pro forma.
Yeah, and within MDE, I believe it's 3 different, I'm gonna call it divisions within MDE who each review the plan. So, it's being vetted through each of those divisions
Do you
simultaneously.
then get one final approval, or do you get separate
Yes.
approval from each of them?
We will receive one final approval. That will be a letter that then is inserted into the plan, because that's why we had a 1 page intentionally left blank. It's at the beginning of the plan. That's where the MDE approval letter is inserted, which then finalizes the plan that it's approved, and that's what ends up being posted as the approved plan.
And by the way, we talked about this a little bit at our last meeting about MDE's review process. So they do have to send it out to a couple of other state agencies, and that's why they have 60 days and then an opportunity to extend that if needed. But there's no reason to believe that it will. But they have Department of Ag and I think Department of Planning, I think, also have to chime in on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks. Thanks,
Mhm.
Kenny.
Mhm.
Okay, I do have the draft. If anybody wants it, I will be happy to send it to you. If you do, send me an email and I will send it to you. Otherwise, I will just wait until the final letter is done to give you the absolute final version. So if you want to see its current state, I'm happy to send it, but otherwise I'm just going to wait. Okay. Kevin?
Area C infill project, construction is ongoing, targeted to be finished by October of next year. And as a result of this construction, the household hazardous waste, an electronic collection site at the landfill have been temporarily closed. And so we're gonna have monthly events at different sites to accommodate the materials from the residents.
Okay, so I wanted to just point this out to other commissioners. I do have concerns that, especially for the household hazard waste. Basically now where we're at is that there is one event per month to drop for this county, for the whole county, to drop household hazardous waste. We do not have a regular collection place to bring stuff anymore. So I don't know. To me, this is concerning. That stuff is just going to get dumped in the trash because it's just, if you miss, for example, I have stuff, I only sort of learned about this because I have actually had stuff to bring over. And I can't make the June 15th drop off. So that means I have to wait 2 months to drop this stuff. So but I'm concerned. It just seems very, very minimal for the next year and a half, it looks like, or so. I don't, yeah,
so we're
Marilyn.
we're hoping, we should have, so let me explain it first. The existing lot at the landfill where where our permanent household hazardous waste and electronics materials were dropped off, that lot is gone, because the construction, they had to deconstruct that lot because that's where the new area cell C1 access road goes right through where that existing lot was. So that, and that work's already ongoing. That's already, they're working on it. So what we had to do is temporarily, we were able to move like electronics across the street to the residential convenience center. We were actually able to move everything that residents were accessing the landfill to do, except for hazardous waste. We went through the vetting process. We wanted to get it moved over there temporarily, but that was a complete no-go.
Why is that?
The permits required by DPI and just all the requirements because it's hazardous waste, it's liquid waste. So we were just unable to move that across the street, not even on a temporary basis. So household hazardous waste is going to end up being moved to what we call Lot 5 or 5A, which is going to remain intact. We will move what the current or past functions of that lot we're moving in order to accommodate the new household hazardous waste drop-off site. So right now, and we're on track, that should be open again for residential public access in November. So the temporary closure should be only through October. And it's only for the household hazardous waste. Again, residents can take electronics to the Brown Station Road Convenience Center. And also starting July 1st, residents will be able, and the outreach is getting ready to go out. Our communications team is working with our county exec's office. I don't think anything's gone out yet, but it's getting real close. Effective July 1, residents will be able to schedule pickup curbside for scrap metal and electronics. So, residents can either still deliver that material to us, to the Brown Station Road Convenience Center, or they can have a pickup of electronics. So that's going to also help alleviate some of that need for the permanent household hazardous waste electronics site. Because a lot of times when the traffic comes in to the what we call HHW e-cycling site at the landfill, about half of that traffic is, people just dropping off old electronics, and they may not necessarily even have the household hazardous waste. So Nancy,
Right.
what we're going to do is, so for now we do have, we were able to secure, because one of the hardest thing to do, believe it or not, with having a community household hazardous waste event, the hardest thing to do is securing a location. And it has become more difficult because we do 4 events annually, despite the fact that we have a permanent facility. And typically we've always used like high school parking lots, because there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into selecting the location. In this case, we were able to secure, I think I forgot which county building it is, but it's in Largo. It's where one of our offices is located, right there off 202 in Largo. So these monthly events are going to be right there in Largo, which isn't too far from where anyone would have otherwise traveled to the landfill. And so other things that have to be taken into consideration that's also very difficult is making sure that we have the staff to work the events because they're on Saturdays. And then finally, we have to make sure that the contractor providing the service is also available. So there's a lot to work through. The budget, so I did not mention budget because, this has been budgeted. We're gonna save some money with the temporary closure. So, we're able to move that funding over to what we call the mobile or community events. But what we'll do, Nancy, and what we're planning on doing is we have our first event coming up. While we're navigating through this, if we see that there is a really, there's that need, if once a month isn't satisfying, we see that we need more, we will make adjustments and look into securing, again, a location. It could be the same location or another county parking lot, making sure we have the staff to be able to work and making sure that the vendor is able to give us that particular date. But yes, so we will definitely be monitoring that.
Nancy, can I ask if there's an update on the plan for the landscaping along Brown Station Road? Is there
Yeah,
any?
Chuck, can you just hold that for a second? Just
Sure.
we'll address that next. Let's finish out this question. So Marilyn, okay, so basically, I'm not sure how you're going to monitor what the demand is. I don't know how you guys are going to figure that out. My worry is that people are not going to ask, they're just going to dump. I'm sure there's plenty of dumping now, because driving it down even to Brown Station Road is a hike for almost everybody. But is there any other, like I looked up, are there any alternatives we can offer people who do want to responsibly, get rid of that stuff and can't make a date? Like I cannot make that June 15th date. I'll be out of town, but I don't want to, what am I do with all the stuff I have?
Yeah, Nancy, we are unaware, and we've researched it.
Well, that's
of
what I
any-
figured.
I mean, because if you go to
Is there a vendor?
a private facility like Clean Harbors is, I think, up in Hartford County. I mean, it's extremely expensive.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
But yeah, we don't, other than attending one of our community events, if you can't make it, asking somebody, to hold on to the material, or, of course, if you have something, I don't know if do you still need the product? Could you use it up? See if maybe a neighbor needs to use it, all those source reduction things that we go through. And the way we're going to gauge it is, when we have this event, because we have the numbers historically of the vehicle count, that comes through for our events. And I know the last event we had, I think that was in Bowie, that number I think that was about 3 weeks ago now, maybe 4. That
The
number
one on May
wasn't,
4th?
yeah, that number, yeah, we had the typical number of vehicles expected. And so what happens is in June, if that number is, we know what the average traffic is. If it's way above normal, then that's our gauge
Mm-hmm.
that, we may need to add more Saturdays. That, so this June's going to be our first, well, or second marker. The first one we held in Bowie was or just outside, not Bowie, the municipality, but I think it was Bowie Bay Sox. We were within the normal range.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're really hoping with the electronics still being able to go over to Brown Station Road. We were able to move cooking oil over there to the Brown Station Road, and combine that with the scheduling of, on curbside collection of electronics. We're hoping that is going to at least take half of, the need of when people driving to the HHW cycling site.
Are there any, so I presume
I
that.
have a question. I've had my hand up.
Okay, Barbara, go ahead.
So now I have 2 questions. One is, at your last event, what was the backlog that people had to wait? The 2 I tried to get into, both after 2 hours, I just gave up with blocks of cars.
So I make sure I want to wrap my head around this. I want to make sure I understood you, Barbara. At the Bowie Bay Sox event, you waited 2 hours?
No, I was asking what was the backup?
Oh, no,
Earlier
backup.
ones I had waited that long and just gave
Yeah,
up.
the only event that we ever had, I'm going to call it an unacceptable wait time or backup, was an event that we held up there near Laurel.
Yeah,
we know-
people
we
were
know
waiting
what-
hours and
Yeah,
hours.
we know what the problem was, but I'm not gonna, I'm gonna refrain from saying what the problem was. But we're not gonna do that again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
It
how does,
didn't work.
it certainly
Yeah.
didn't.
No.
How does Howard County do it? Where at their refuse facility, they take it every day, anytime. So I just went and gave it to my friend from Howard County who took it.
Yeah, and I know Montgomery County, about a year or 2 ago, they So I will say Prince George's County, we were the first county to have a permanent site for hazardous waste. Now we have some counties, fast forward, that sort of have surpassed us, because like Montgomery, they now have a facility for residents to drop off household hazardous materials. And they, I think it was about a year, maybe two ago, they did open that up for a 7-day a week per week drop off, which I think is pretty phenomenal. But you know, our budget allows for us to be open 3 days a week, Thursday through Saturday.
Okay, so I was just gonna, the last question, maybe, if I'm not sure if anybody else has any other questions on this topic, and then we'll go to Chuck's, get an update. The county doesn't collect any household hazardous waste from municipalities. They just send their people to the county. Is that correct?
Yes, we don't, that's correct. I think the way you said it was correct. Yeah,
Okay.
residents from anywhere in the county, regardless if they're in an incorporated or unincorporated area, may bring household hazardous waste to the well, right now to a mobile event, but once we open up lot 5, they'll be able to bring it to the landfill.
Right, so there's no municipality that has arrangement with the county to take household hazardous waste that they collect. Is that right?
No, because we have our permit is for small generator, meaning it's individuals bringing in household hazardous waste.
Right, and not
opposed to-
commercial.
Correct.
Right, okay. All right, okay, thank you for clarifying
You're
that. All
welcome.
right.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see. I would be a proponent of, and I know it's a budget issue and a staff issue, and I really appreciate, I'm sure a lot of work has gone into everything that you all have to do to mitigate, you know, the operation during this period of time. I do just want to express concern that, you know, there could be increased dumping of material, which is never good. So, but anyway, okay, Chuck, Chuck had a question about, again, an update on the status, and maybe we should have asked Mr. Jackson, but if anybody knows about the status of the tree cover issue at Brown Station Road.
So there will be fencing going up along the entire span of the landfill along Brown Station Road. That should be commencing soon. I believe there's some surveying taking place right now. And then once the fencing is installed, then trees will be planted as a screen, if you will.
As I understand it,
I'm
that's a
sorry.
chain link fence or something similar to a chain link fence. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
So it'll be visible. I mean, obviously the visual image will still be there without the trees, without the berming in the vegetation.
That's correct.
Okay, so again, on behalf of the community, I'd like to encourage the vegetation to be replaced as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
We agree completely.
Who's doing, so Meryl, who's doing that project?
Well, it's an internal project. We are working through the Maryland Environmental Service.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be doing, for instance, the procurement
Mm-hmm.
of the vendor who will install the fencing. And then with the tree planting, that could be going through MES, or it could be within our division working internally with you know, our what we call our tree people in the county. Because of course we want to make sure we select the right type of tree as well.
Right. Okay.
But the actual, you know, purchase of the trees, contracting, you know, the planting, all that will be contracted out. Likely
Okay.
through like a landscaping company.
Okay, all right. So the planning will be internal, but the project itself will be done by a vendor.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, so thank you. Okay, Kevin. Let's keep going.
Next, the landfill emission study with UMD. So just last week, we received an email from UMD stating that NIST has agreed to the cooperative agreement. And so we asked them to sign the document and forward to us for execution. So currently the document is for signature by UMD and NIST.
Okay, so NIST has not signed it yet. Is that correct?
They haven't, but yeah, we requested them to sign.
Okay, so the document's complete. We're just waiting for the signature from NIST and University of Maryland at this point.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then when you guys get it back, then will that be signed relatively soon so they can get started?
Yes, hopefully, yes. Mhm.
Okay. I mean,
as soon as you go ahead.
It's been reviewed and everything, so really the signature should just be just sort of something that has to get done, there's no further review. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the DOA side, it has been reviewed for legal sufficiency. So yeah, we're just waiting for the signed document.
Okay. All right. And roughly, Kevin, do you know when it went out to them? How long has this been? I feel like we've been in the signature process for months or something.
So the reason why it was pending for so long was because NIST has not responded to the request to, comment on that agreement. But we got the email just last week.
Okay. All right.
Saying that NIST has agreed to do the study.
Okay. All right, great. So hopefully that'll move pretty quickly at this point. That would be great. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Pipeline project, we don't have any update yet. But on the LFG RFI, it's being vetted by our Office of Law with the intention that, it will be posted publicly or only for the consumption of SWAC. So there is an ongoing review process by the Office of Law regarding the publication of the RFIs.
Okay, and I think you had said to me the hope was that it would be ready for release at the beginning of June.
So I think you're asking about the RFP.
Oh, yes, I mean the
the
RFP, yes.
So the target is early June. So it will be posted, yes, publicized.
Okay.
Is that proposal and the pipe proposal being rolled into one, or are they still being handled separately?
Say that again, Charles.
The restoration of the pipeline and the request for proposals, are they being handled separately? Because they both relate to the gas. Or are they being consolidated into one and you're not going to consider the pipeline in the future?
So go ahead, Marlene.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
So the RFP aims to identify the best options on developing or on harnessing the landfill gas, right? And I think that includes soliciting proposals on the pipeline as well. So it's inclusive of the gas development.
So is that holding up restoration of the pipeline?
Marlene?
Yeah, so I really can't answer appropriately to that because we don't have a status, and I am aware that you're waiting on a status or response, I should say, to a letter I believe that Nancy had sent over to our Office of Central Services
Correct, some time
But
ago.
it, but
10
I,
months ago.
yeah, but what, yep, and I can't answer to that, I'm sorry. But I can, reiterate or confirm what Kevin said with the RFP that's going out. It could be, it could be one of two things. It could incorporate, the county is still going to, send gas down to the Department of Corrections. Or it could be, that the county, that this other beneficial use and new technology or what have you, it excludes the pipeline, and there could be no more, pipeline or no gas being transmitted any longer down to the DOC.
Yeah, but
So
that's
that
gonna,
much we do
yeah,
know.
that's gonna delay the process of, here we are still flaming off this gas.
It could.
Until some decision is made. I'm a little frustrated. I don't know about any of the other commissioners, but I think we've been more than reasonable in trying to get a response from the county as to exactly what the status is and why that pipeline isn't being addressed. I'll take the non-response as the answer. Thank you.
So my understanding at this point, so let me clarify, is that the RFP sets a parameter for, I guess, a response that could include both options. That was my understanding at one point, that there was still a consideration of both options, or an either or option.
It could be, Nancy. We don't know that yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that's a
okay.
unknown.
okay. And Marilyn, is there, and I'm sorry, I did look at the capital budget and I just don't recall right now, but is there funding? How does the funding work for this project in terms of, I guess, not knowing how this is going to go? And I'm guessing this is a significant part of the decision about what makes sense in terms of the offset of the sale of gas versus the sort of cost of the various infrastructure.
So you're asking, let me make sure I understood it right, like how it will be, meaning if the RFP gets put out and say the county makes a selection on whatever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
how is the thing that they decide to do funded?
Yeah, basically, that's a good way to put into better words than I was able to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if that's a very good question. So we do know that there is funding, I'll say, like, allocated to the pipeline project. So I'm assuming hypothetically that if the pipeline project doesn't move forward, because if that thing that they decide to do doesn't include the pipeline, there is some funding there available. But another thing is, within the RFP, there could be a scenario where the vendor who brings forth the technology and the development
Invest.
of whatever it might be, pays for the, there could be an arrangement where it's paid for by the vendor who, develops this technology and constructs it with a sort of like a cost, I forgot what it's called, but it's kind of like a cost revenue arrangement where
Right.
if they fund the project, then this is just completely a made up number here. Let's say if the county funded the project, we would get $1 per unit of gas. But if the vendor funds the project, then that revenue might, for X number of years, be reduced to 50 cents. So,
Right, to pay them for their everything.
yeah, so, because, we do know that, there could be a whole range of different,
Right.
budgeting, a
Right.
way to pay for it.
What is the process to reprogram the money should they decide not to move forward on the pipeline, but to move that money over to something else, whatever it's going to be?
Right.
What's the process? Does that have to go back through the council, or is that?
Yeah, I
Just
would
an
believe
internal-
all of our funding over a certain everything goes through council. And I think Kenneth,
That as
Kenny,
part
you
of
can
the
answer
capital
better to
improvement
that, but
budget,
yeah.
that would have to go back to the council for modification.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So we're looking at a long-term process to get much of anything accomplished.
Yeah,
And it's been long already.
Absolutely.
it'll be 6 years in
I
July.
mean, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
It's clearly no urgency.
Well, I would say I also have concerns about that it's taken, which will be 6 years in July, since I think the pipeline was decommissioned. However, I will say at this point, whatever's gotten it finally moving, it does seem that now that there really is movement on the project. So I did have a conference call with somebody about flaring recently, and we could bring an expert on to talk about that if people are interested. If you are interested, please, again, drop me an email and say, I'd love to have that, so that I could learn about it. And I kind of learned that a lot of this is pretty complicated, but it was very helpful. So just to say that, I think we feel like there's a necessary urgency to this project. And I think are making that clear to the county. And at the same time, it seems apparent that the county is at least moving on the project at this point. So, okay. All right, Kevin.
Okay. On the bicycle reuse program, we're moving. So yesterday we had a meeting to discuss the next steps. So Jefferson made a summary of the survey results from the 3 bike groups, and the next step is to have further conversation with individually with the bike groups to get more information, and eventually have a consultation meeting with these groups to firm up the program. So yeah, um, so next week the plan is for Jefferson to reach out to the groups again, and then schedule the meeting with the committee and the recycling section. You want to add something, Nancy, on what we discussed?
Yeah, I mean, this is a SWAC reuse committee, so it's been really great. And Marilyn, thanks a lot for having the department support this effort. We really, really appreciate it. I know you guys are busy and people have a lot on their plate, and the staff have been really terrific. So yeah, and I think it's really great. I think we're sorting some things out. We're learning a lot as we go, trying to segregate a waste stream and figure out both. I mean, there's sort of 3 goals of the project. One is just, the real diversion, keeping stuff out of the landfill. The second one is redistribution back into the community. And the third one, of course, is really maximizing social benefits. And those are really the key things for doing a good job with taking materials and reusing them. So I'm excited. We are moving along. I feel like we're going to learn a lot about how to not only divert the materials, and on the public side is to figure out a role, what the role of resource recovery can be in helping move this project along. And then there's a question of, okay, then how do we develop infrastructure in the greater community to ensure effective redistribution? So whether that's sort of maybe working with some other departments, we've actually reached out to Park and Planning and to some of the bicycle associations, and Chuck had recommended talking to corrections. That's on the list. And so we're looking at also, down the road, how to build partnerships so that we can maximize training and education, and both for utilitarian purposes, like people need transportation, but also for enjoyment and recreation. So anyway, it's been a great project, and I don't think anybody else around, as far as I know, I haven't seen anybody else working on this. So again, I really appreciate that we're taking leadership on this. So that's it. And your last item,
And lastly, so RRD will be initiating an outreach program in District 2 based on the request of Council Member Fisher. And it copies the template that we did in Service Area 590 on reducing recycling contamination. So activities will include outreach and repurposing of old carts into trash carts. And we will also be distributing recycling carts to accommodate the recyclable materials generated in the community. And it will cover about 1,000 homes. And currently we're in the planning stage to do the initiative.
so Kevin, what carts are being repurposed?
So we have the old carts. It's the DER carts that were distributed long time ago, and
The
they're up for,
recycling carts?
yes, recycling carts. So we will replace them, but the old carts will be repurposed for use as trash carts.
Oh,
And
trash
then,
carts, okay.
correct, yes. And
Okay, great.
we will provide them with the new recycling carts.
Okay, great. Okay, I've got a question for you to add to your update, and that is the question, and we had some back and forth because we had some back and forth about responsibility for recycling at multifamily properties. So our first communication was that the municipalities are responsible, but then it was changed up to some municipalities are responsible, some municipalities are not. Is that correct? For enforcement of recycling in multifamily units. Just so everybody knows what we're talking about.
So based on the information that we got from DPI, in terms of the maintenance code, some municipalities are in charge of enforcing the code, but according to DPI, some municipalities rely on them to enforce the code.
Okay, so can we get a list of which municipalities are doing their own are supposed to be doing their own enforcement, and which ones are working with the county?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, that would be great. Okay.
Well, with regards to that, since DPI only works on complaints, they're not enforcing anything. All they're going to do is field a complaint that comes through 311 for it. And as far as, general enforcement, going around and seeing who's in compliance and who isn't, they aren't going to do that because that's not how they operate. From at least what I've heard at community partner meetings and that, all they do is complaints. So if there's no complaint, they're not enforcing anything. Or am I misinterpreting what I've been heard at community partner meetings and that? So to rely on them to enforce something, nothing is getting enforced because they don't do enforcement. All they do is respond to complaints. So if no one's complaining about it, they're not enforcing it because no one's bothered to tell them, hey, you deal with this one. And at the point at which they're telling somebody to deal with it, they're not doing the enforcement. It's the person who called in the complaint is doing the enforcement action, which they're not in a position to do that. They're just a private citizen acting on something that they know should be done, but it isn't being done. Or, it just doesn't seem that.
So Kevin, can you respond to that, how the enforcement works?
Now I'll take that, Nancy.
Okay, sorry, Marilyn.
Yeah, so when I reached out to DPI, about, with respect to the question, about enforcement in the incorporated areas, Bill Edlin had responded that there are some municipalities where the county does have enforcement authority, And he did ask if we wanted to see, you know, have a chart of which municipalities, because every municipality, it's really complicated because each one of them has their own charter and they're all pretty different. But he did offer up and said he has a chart, which we did respond, or I responded with copy to Kevin. Yes, we would love to see that chart so we can share it with you. Now, what my suspect, what I think we're going to see is this is just my guess. I think of all the municipalities, I think we're going to probably see a fewer number of municipalities where the county has the you know, enforcement authority, but I could be wrong. So, but what I think we're going to see is most municipalities, or at least a majority of them, they have their own, you know, code enforcement authority and not the county. But we're waiting. They did say they have a chart, and he did say he would share that. He hasn't shared it yet, but he said he would get it over to us, which of course Kevin will be more than happy to send to you, so you can see which municipalities DPI does have enforcement authority.
Okay, okay, that's great. Thank you. And thank you for following up on that. Really appreciate that.
But that doesn't answer Bill's question for the ones.
Yeah, and
where
I can't answer to, you know, speak on behalf of another department. You know, whether they're complaint driven or proactive. I don't, that's completely out of our RD.
Well, I mean,
Probably even our department's
that's what
purview.
they've publicly announced at the community partners meeting. It's how they operate. And even for the unincorporated areas, is DPI responsible for any enforcement in those areas, or is that entirely on Department of Environment to do the enforcement? Because if they're doing the enforcement for the unincorporated areas and they're only doing complaint driven, you're not getting any action from them. It's whatever you guys are doing, you know? So if you're thinking that they're helping you, they're no help at all in a lot of ways. But
so Marilyn, is for the unincorporated areas, I mean, for the unincorporated areas, who has enforcement authority on recycling?
We do.
Okay.
exclusively,
We do.
exclusively.
For recycling, not
For-
exclusively. So for
Exclusively
instance,
for recycling, you have it. DPI
Yes.
doesn't help. You don't partner with DPI for any enforcement on recycling issues in unincorporated areas.
so let's say we get we go out and we do an inspection of a multifamily property. We're looking at recycling to make sure they have, you know, per county code, their recycling program, I'm going to call it, per what the county code says. So we vet all that and we inspect it, do the education outreach. If, you know, we have to issue a violation, citation, whatever. So we do that. If, of course, while we're out there, or if we get, you know, a complaint called in that there's a multifamily, and this does happen, that there's a multifamily property with a trash dumpster that's overflowing, and we have seen this with garbage all over the ground. You know, clearly they don't have an adequate collections contract or not enough dumpsters, whatever. We will contact DPI in those cases, and our experience with those cases is DPI has responded pretty almost immediately, you know, within certainly a day or two. They have had an inspector out there to get that the trash problem rectified. That's our experience, Bill. So I don't know if that completely answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Do you have to do 311 for that, or you can talk to them directly?
Do we do 311?
Yeah, I'm
No, oh no.
okay.
If we're out doing if we're doing our investigation and we see an issue, we communicate directly with DPI. And
Okay,
we
you don't
alert
have to
them,
go
'cause
through.
we're alerting them. You know, it might not have come from a citizen, or if I do get information from a citizen, I mean, clearly if it's from 311, they're going to send it straight to DPI. It doesn't come to us. But
Okay.
you know, if we're out and we see something, and even if it's a commercial property, it's not just multifamily. If we see a trash issue at a a commercial property, we contact DPI.
Okay,
Okay, so Merrill, let me just clarify. So Department of Environment does do enforcement and regular inspections for multifamily properties in the unincorporated areas?
Correct, yes.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Okay, so thank you for that. Let's, we are really close to the end here. So we're gonna move to committee reports. So Dave, you've got the bulk of stuff, so you're gonna do a quick rundown or on the survey.
I
Kevin,
can
can
tr-
you, can you pull up the,
I can try. Are we supposed to be ending here at 7:30?
better. I got a meeting.
well, we may run over a few minutes if people don't mind, or you can,
Another meeting.
okay. Well, Dave, do you want to try to go forward or do you want to hold it?
Well, I can start talking and then maybe we'll get the PowerPoint on here in a minute. What we did is working with the University of Maryland, we got a group of 5 students, part of the capstone project.
Dave, hold on a second. Let me just say something before, in case people go off at 7:30. So I just want to make sure everyone who is on the commission currently needs to have filled out a financial disclosure form. And if you haven't filled it out by now, you're going to be paying a $2 a day fine. So if you haven't done it, I haven't checked with everybody, please do it. The other thing is that Kevin has offered, the county's offered a refresher on the ethics course that they provide. If you're interested in that course, please email me. I think those are the 2 main items I wanted to mention. So, okay, thank you. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, and I've taken care of that, so I'm okay with the financial disclosure and everything else.
Nancy,
Okay.
just for the record, I've submitted mine about 2 months ago, right after the request came out.
Okay, good, great. Okay, thank you.
Mine's done.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
Mine is done also.
okay, good. Okay, hope everybody else has done theirs. If you haven't done it, please do it as soon as possible. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's good to get it done. Okay, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No problem. Several of us on the commission have been in discussion with the University of Maryland, and they have this capstone project, which former mayor of College Park, Andy Fellows, runs, and they have 50 to 75 student groups a semester. We got one of the groups. What we did was we developed a survey to look at one small area of the county. It's called College Heights Estates. It's almost adjacent to the university. We thought that was actually make it easier for the students. They developed a survey, which Nancy and I have been kind of working with them on. It's not a perfect survey, but I think it's a start. And what we got is we got out to 200 households. About 10% of the households, 20% of the households responded. We got the data back now. We just sort of received some of that information, and we'll pass that on to DOE and to the rest of the commission fairly soon. We're trying to get it into kind of a final form, and we're supposed to have a meeting with Mr. Fellows and possibly one of his grad students who is overseeing the project. And we'll hope to have something like that fairly soon. We think that actually it's really a good thing that we could actually do again, possibly other places, and maybe the Department of the Environment might be interested in sort of learning what people know, understand, why they're participating, why they're not. It's I think it would be a good starting point. We have been told by Mr. Fellows that we could probably do another project this summer and maybe another one in the fall, and possibly do it in other parts of the county. The College Heights Estates is a pretty affluent place, primarily a white community. It's probably not typical of the rest of the county, and we thought it might be good to get do it in a couple other places where there maybe it's more typical of what county residents are. But I think it's a really good starting point. We now have a survey. We started asking some, I think, good questions. We know that it has to be probably some of it altered and changed a bit, but I think it's a good starting point. And we look forward to working with the DOE on this, because I think it's be one way of really starting to understand why people are composting or not, or their understanding of it. So
So Kevin, I
unfortunately,
guess he wasn't able to get the slide deck up.
I don't have the slide, David.
you don't have the slides.
Yes, I didn't receive it. Sorry.
Oh, I sent it to you about noon today. So, but when I get those, again, what we'll do is we'll send it to you and to all the commissioners and to anybody else, Mr. Battle, anybody else who would like to see it. And certainly would like to have a discussion, get some input from everybody. Like I said, it's not, certainly isn't a perfect survey. There's something, I'm sure there's things we can do better, but I think it's at least a start. And I hope that's something that will be a benefit to the Department of the Environment. And
Dave, I have a real question. When 80% don't respond, how is there any feeling that this is remotely representative? The people
Well,
who care more about waste refuse, in my mind, are much more likely to respond than those who don't.
well, I don't know. It's a good question. We made a real effort to get the surveys out. We hand delivered to the entire community.
I'm not blaming you for getting it out. I'm just saying when the response is 20%.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty low too. The students who are doing this analysis said they thought with 20% they might be able to get a fairly decent, do a fairly decent analysis. But again, that's a good question, and maybe that's something we have to talk about. Like I said,
I
we
mean,
made
you
a
can
real
do
effort.
great numerical analysis on it. The question is it at all meaningful if these are the 20% of the most environmentally caring people in this community who bother to respond?
Well, I don't know what else can you do if people don't respond? You can just, like I said, we made a couple of different ways. We had some of the students actually went door to door and did get some information from people that they talked to. We had a guy in the community who has about half the email addresses. He sent them out to them, and then we also hand delivered to the rest of the community. So I'm just not sure what you can do beyond that, but I'm certainly open to more ideas on how to do it better next time. And maybe your point's well taken about those who respond maybe are more interested. So
Okay, so unless we don't have anything to present, so maybe Dave, let's move on.
yeah.
We've
There
covered a
are-
lot on.
There are two events coming up this week. On Wednesday, the Sierra Club, the County Sierra Club with Janet Gingold, and the State Sierra Club with Josh Tolkien, who runs the Sierra Club for the county, for the state. One will be talking about, Janet Gingold, about let's talk about composting, and that will be a presentation.
It's Wednesday night.
Yeah, Wednesday night.
Right.
Okay. And Josh Chokins is actually from 1 to 3 on, and if anybody's interested in either of those, his was about climate change mitigation. And I think it's something some of us commissioners should be interested in, and possibly the Department of the Environment too. So I want to let people know that those two events are happening this Wednesday. I think that's
That it?
I'm just looking at my list here. That's probably the main things. Maybe I could talk offline with either Marilyn or Kevin about Sandy Hill, which has a flare, and I wanted to find out a little bit more about that particular flare. I heard that there may be upgrading the flare at Ground Station, and I'm wondering if that's something they may be planning to do at Sandy Hill.
Is there a quick
Well-
answer to that?
Nancy, I have to go back and review what we do or do not need to do with respect to the flare at Sandy Hill, whether or not it meets the current regulations or not.
Okay,
I know we have to replace the one at the Brown Station
Right.
landfill. I believe we may, I know there's work that has to be done at the Sandy Hill one as well, but I don't want to misspeak on it.
okay, so,
I'll make a note. I'll make a note on that. Mhm.
okay, yeah, okay, great. All right, thanks, Dave. Okay, trying to get close to 7:30. I know we're a little bit past. So Nyla, do you have anything for your committee to report? Did she leave? Oh. She may have signed off. Okay,
Nancy?
yeah,
Okay, I'm a bit concerned. I'm on that committee and the SWAC was supposed to help with messaging and I haven't heard anything about it.
about messaging for what, Barbara? No, there's
Remember
mine.
I was under the impression that the county council had said to DOE that the SWAC should help with messaging, and they said that they'd let the SWAC do that. A couple of meetings ago, we were told that.
Barbara, I think the discussion was for the results of the Scopson survey to be finished first, which will aid in developing the messages. In addition to the waste sort that was conducted at the compost facility. So, so in order for us to have a better grasp of the picture in terms of the strategies to reduce recycling contamination, it's better to have the result of the Capson survey be finished first, and so we have reference for the development of the messages.
That makes sense? Barbara?
Okay. I mean, I think one could get started with it, certainly.
I mean, we
Uh,
just need to finish, I think, the aggregating the data from the survey to make it more useful. And I think we have a time set up on Thursday to meet with one of the students to.
But I mean, if the capstone project is a 200 people, of which 40 are responding from a wealthy, non-representative community within the county, I'm not sure that waiting for that is necessarily going to tell us what is necessary to do.
Dave, you want to respond to that?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean about waiting. We're talking about having a discussion with the University of Maryland's folks this week. And I'd certainly be glad to have you as part of that conversation. But we're
Okay,
just,
great. I'd like to.
okay, that would be good. Nancy, there's two other things I want to mention real quickly. That'll be just
Okay,
less than a minute. One would be the sort which I would like to request of
yeah, SWAC.
a DOE, and that would be two sorts for the University Park, which is a municipality, and what we'd like to do would be to do two sorts, one now and one later in the year. Our town is going to go from
Providing.
giving bio bags to no longer purchasing and giving them out, and we think that may start a plastic issue. So we'd like to do a sort twice to kind of see if that has changed. I'm wondering if that's something we could do, maybe get some of the commissioners or maybe some other folks to help with the sorts, so that it would require a minimal amount of staff to do those two sorts. That's one
Marilyn,
thing. The other,
hold on, let's get a response. Marilyn, what's your take on that? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea, and I think some, valuable information could come out of that. What I need to know is what time frame you're looking for to do sort of like what I'm gonna call the pre-sort.
Right.
And then what time frame, when is the University Park going to stop providing the bag? So just sort of give me the two time frames, and then I need to of course work it through MES and just make sure that we have the resources and we're able to do it. But I think it's a great idea.
Okay, great. Do you need anything
yeah.
from us? Do you need me to send you something, or is it just, you just know and you'll follow up?
I thought I mean, I believe I saw an email preliminarily that maybe David sent Kevin and with where I was copied, Nancy, and maybe you guys were as well. But yeah, if you want to just email us a blurb about it, and
Okay,
that would be great. Yeah.
okay, okay, great.
And
Okay, Dave?
especially with like the time frames.
Yeah,
Because isn't that real soon, Dave?
Yeah.
July
what,
1st, Barbara.
Yeah.
July the 1st is when we'll stop, so we won't have bio bags being distributed anymore. So we were hoping to do it before that, and then maybe sometime in the fall. So give us several months and to see if there's any change. So that would kind of be, and it would be 2 truckloads coming in on Monday, one truckload coming in each on a Monday in maybe June, or and then another one sometime in the fall, like in October, November, just so we have several months to look at and see if it makes a change.
And I believe University Park, do they self-haul? I know at one point they had contracted the collection out, but they're self-hauling, right? With a University Park truck coming in. Okay.
Yes. Mhm,
All
yes.
right. All right.
Second item.
Marilyn, I want to ask you just one other thing. University, Russ Dickerson has this mobile unit, which apparently they're working on now to repair, and it'll be available fairly soon. We were wondering if we could bring that mobile unit into the OCF and look for methane, which we think they're probably very little, but I don't know if there's a lot of actual data yet. And we'd like to get them to bring their vehicle in to look close to the bunkers, and then also at where the open windrows are, and just see if there's any methane. If there isn't, that'll be actually a really good message to give to everybody that composting doesn't create methane as opposed to going to the landfill. So
Right. So we're going to check on the status of that NDA that's being vetted through the Office of Law.
Right.
It shouldn't be too much longer, and then either it's going to be ready for signature, or if University of Maryland or SWAC have any edits or questions about the information that's in it, then it would go back for an edit. But we're going to check on that, and we'll get back to Nancy.
thank
But
you.
yeah, we're very supportive of that, Dave. We're very supportive.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Marilyn. Thanks. Okay, Nyla, are you still? I saw you pop in. Maybe you popped out. Maybe I'm just not seeing everybody. Does
It's
it look
going
like-
on 3 o'clock in the morning there. She's probably tired.
Yeah, I'm sure she is. Okay, well, okay, so the budget update, I know, Kenny, there really was not much to report, correct?
Right, only that the council is scheduled to adopt the budget on Thursday,
Okay,
11
Thursday.
o'clock.
Okay,
As
Okay.
usual, not aware of any changes that they've made to DOE's budget. Of course, there's always the possibility of something, but doesn't look like it at this point. So
okay, great. Okay, all right, terrific. Okay, so I think any announcements, resource recovery, any upcoming events? Oh, there we go. Okay, so,
So
oh,
we
great.
have some events lined up, like the Green Summit in October, and also the monthly household hazardous waste event, June 15, July 27, August 17, September 7, and October 5. And you
Okay.
have on this slide the venues for the event.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you to the staff for staying the extra time. I know it's a long day, and thank you everybody else who's had a long day, and thank you for being here. I'm sorry this ran over tonight. There's just a lot to cover. So really appreciate it. We'll be in touch. If you haven't done the financial disclosure, again, please do it. Again, if you're interested in the ethics refresher, let me know. We will set that up. And or any other concerns you might have, please feel free to email me, and I will be in touch probably before the next meeting. So to follow up on some things. So thank you, everybody, and have a good week.
Good night.
I think